You can't get away from, some of the challenges that we face as men and boys. The biggest issue in men's health is that we present late for everything, like everything. There is a large part of the male population, I'd say as much as 80%, that know what's good for them. They know when they're operating at their best. They know what really good looks like for them. They know when they're feeling really good. Getting them to do that as much as possible is the challenge. Like getting men to change their behaviour and normalise things and make it habitual is the challenge.
November is a big month every year for men's health in New Zealand. Today we sit down with Robert Dunne, who is probably one of the busiest people in the country, being the country manager for Movember. Mate, good to steal a little bit of your time. What does November typically look like for you?
Yeah, mate, I'd love to sort of get people to inquire or ask about Movember maybe in like August, September, but that's just not human nature. There's a bunch of things I can do in the front half of the year to get ready and organised and stuff, and I try my hardest in that space, but invariably people start thinking of Movember, as we approach the month. So, September, October, early November becomes extremely busy. And really, actually, at this time of the year, it's just all that inquiry. All of a sudden, people are realising the month's just around the corner. They might have a really engaged workmate or sports team member or whatever it may be. And they're like, right, boys, let's go. So they reach out to us. And as I said, there's a bit of a bottleneck at this time of year. But you try your hardest. You probably never get it all done. But you just try your hardest to get around everyone and set them up for success. And we're really lucky. The success of Movember has got nothing to do with me or the other people who work with me. It's literally those people who are prepared to sort of be that kind of, billboard for men's health throughout the course of the month. So just try our hardest to support them. But yeah, busy times, but it's fun. Like it's a good gig, people telling us they're going to, do 40 marathon, like a marathon every day in November and stuff like that. So it's not, this is not taxing stuff when people come to you to sort of inquire about that and how we can support them.
So you've been doing this for 15 years, I believe, right? So what's kind of changed in that time in terms of, has it gone from people growing a mo to, I see people running events or running marathons, like you say, getting people together and doing their own fundraisers? What have you seen the evolution of this look like?
Totally, like so many things, and some of it are based around health, some of it's around just, life and the hard case societal changes. I used to process $400,000 worth of checks, when I first used to rock on down to the bank and chuck those in. Well, obviously we can't do that now. I think, back in the day we used to process maybe, at best, 20 or 30% of donations were online or like through an app. These days, that's completely flipped because we trust that system a lot more than we used to. It's very accessible. We design the campaign in that way, QR codes, links, all that sort of stuff, and we've all become, very digital with our currency. So like, that's one thing that's substantially changed. In terms of the health stuff, look, when I first started at Movember, it was really hard to get a conversation going around men's health and particularly, men's mental health and suicide prevention. Like it really was. And, we had people say to me, in the last 5 or 6 years, oh, it's fantastic that you support mental health and suicide prevention these days. And I said, well, we always have. Like from as long as I've been working in Movember, we've always funded programs and that's always been one of our causes. Yeah. But it's just a bit harder to have a conversation about it. The acknowledgement wasn't there. There was still a lot of stigma. But that's completely flipped. And these days, I'd say certainly probably the majority. I wouldn't know the number, but, cite supporting Movember because of mental health and suicide prevention. We have back in the day, I used to go in and support a workplace because it was a young intern or someone who had just started. He was in his 20s and he just wanted to rip in and do Movember, grow a moustache and do something for mental health. But these days, it's senior management are at the table and it's the boss or someone in that senior management team has actually helped driving it and giving space and permission for the organisation to do that. So like that's a really significant change, and it always leads me into there is so much work to do. Like you can't get away from, some of the challenges that we face as men and boys, but we are going in the right direction. Like we 100% we are. We just, unfortunately, some of the more tragic things that get headlines or create more conversation. Like there's a bunch of things that we're doing that are awesome, so it's my job, I reckon, just to hold that stuff up in lights and show people that we are all pedaling in the right direction, but there's just going to be a few waves and a few 90-degree bends and a few different things on the way. But if we help each other, we can get through them.
Do you want to touch on what some of those things are that you are working on and that you want to hold up in lights so people have got a bit of better understanding if they're not too close to this space?
Yeah, totally. Like I think Many, many years ago, most sort of corporate workplaces, and perhaps you see that in your work, is there was nothing formalised for men's health, like nothing. There might have been some sort of work initiative for young people. There might have been a work initiative for like breast cancer of females. There might have been famine, people in Africa, jump rope for heart, all these different things that you probably remember as a young person. But there was nothing that was gendered. There was nothing that was for men's health, and that's really why Movember came to be, is because the boys looked around and saw that there was all these different charities, but there was literally no charity. This is only 20 years ago, for men. There was nothing that was gendered. There was nothing that was trying to support and advocate for men and the challenges they face. So that has completely changed. Like these days, to the credit of companies and communities and just society in general, there's a real acknowledgement that this is an issue and that actually, a healthy man creates a far more healthy world, not just for ourselves, but for our partners, for our kids, for our workplaces, for our communities. So that's been awesome. And I think because we sort of got going a little bit earlier, we've been able to channel some of that momentum and energy. And I suppose our job now is to kind of advocate for everyone doing that stuff, but maybe be a little bit of a subject matter expert and try and push them in the right direction and aggregate all the information through our programs and research and say, like, this is where we're going to get the biggest wins. But, it's changed heaps and which is awesome. As I said, it doesn't mean we're nailing it. It doesn't mean we're getting everything right, because there's significantly different challenges from when I first started at Movember, like all these things you deal in, mate, like there's no crypto and there's no, I don't know when I had social media, but I was well into my 20s, so all these things that actually have become pretty significant challenges for young men have popped up while we've existed. So we've got to be nimble as well and be able to navigate those things. But essentially, what does it look like to be a good man, and when are you operating at your best? That's what we're trying to tell people.
Nice. How did you come to get involved in this space?
Mate, a real Kiwi stuff, I suppose. I was actually, I was on my OE in the UK, like so many Kiwis, particularly back then when it was probably, a real thing to do, and so many were doing it. They still are. My brother's there, but it felt like the height of the OE back then.
Yeah.
And just through a friend of a friend that I was playing rugby with, introduced me to the sort of the Australian boys who started it. It started in Fitzroy, Melbourne all these years ago, and sort of New Zealand and the UK were kind of where it spread to organically, sort of expat Australians and Kiwis all getting along and mixing up and really just kind of having fun doing good. They knew that growing moustaches was a bit hard case and a bit different, 15, 20 years ago. Knew that it was charitable, knew that it was for men and there was nothing for men, but that was essentially how it was all born. I was the same. I was a young guy. I just thought, this is quite a cool way to do something good. I'd never really done anything good. I'd never really thought about other people. I was just a young fella out there doing all the stupid things that we do, when we're young and making mistakes. But I thought it was an awesome way to get in behind it. I ran some North Island, South Island rugby games and events in London while we were there, and they sort of all went quite well. And the boys said to me, would you like to be more involved? New Zealand's actually a huge amount of organic activity there. I wasn't really sure at the time, and long story short, the opportunity came up a couple of years later when I got home to kind of set up Movember here in New Zealand and get it established as a charity and do it all properly, and so that's what I did, and I've really enjoyed it. It's sort of, it's a big part of my identity these days. I really enjoy it. It's something that I'm very proud of. But then in saying that as well, the success of it is the community that supports it. If I was to give it away tomorrow, it would surge on and still be a really influential organisation, which is something that we can all be really proud of.
Nice. So you sort of see yourself as the guardian of it, for the time that you're in charge as such. But you've had a good crack at it, that's for sure. 15 years.
Yeah, totally. You sort of do try and be a bit of a kaitiaki of these things and keep the values, and that's why things like while there's different ways to participate in Movember, we sort of call it grow, move, or host. The reason that we'll always sort of hold growing a mow up in lights is because, one, it's what we're all about. It's how we started. It's our signature. But also, like, growing a mow can be difficult. To do it for 30 days. Some guys are follically gifted and they just whip it up in a week and they strut around showing off their handlebar and all that sort of stuff. But someone like me, quite ironic. Sort of the country manager of Movember. It takes me a wee while to get going as well, and I go through all those same challenges that people go through when it's week 1 of Movember and people are like, are you doing Movember, Rob? And I'm like, back off, it's coming, mate. Just
next November.
Yeah, totally. And then these days, mate, you get a bit of salt and pepper or a bit of orange, and you don't know where that's come from. But by the end of the month, it's out. And if we're doing our job right, it's sort of what works for men is that really fun and an informal way of engaging in health, that sort of health by stealth. And it's all a bit of fun for a start. We have a bit of banter and we do it at work, and hopefully it loosens up that environment, or we do it with our mates. But hopefully by the end of the month into the third and fourth week, we start sort of engaging in our health and the health of our mates, and some of those conversations turn from that fun and irreverent stuff, which is absolutely our foundation, to men's health conversations. So we would never do a fake moustache campaign or do anything that sort of cheapens the act of growing a mo. It is absolutely our badge. You can move, you can host, and they are fantastic ways to participate in Movember as well. But the moustache is our hero and always will be. So I always want to guard that, and that's what I always say to people when they say, company approaches you and says, can we do a bunch of badges and we'll sell them for $5 each and we'll make you $2 million. And it's like, yep, that sounds amazing, but we grow mows. In Movember we grow moustaches.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so tell us a bit then about what happens. There's the fundraising arm of it through. This is the peak season in November, but then you're facilitating conversations and encouraging people to open up about what they've got going on, or having a chat to a mate, for instance. So is that sort of the two arms to it? We're fundraising at this time of year, but we're also encouraging convo. And so then, talk us through that side, but then also where does the money go, or what ends up happening from there? Does it fund research or?
Yeah, totally. So it's a great question, and you're right. Like, the month coming up is our time to shine. It's the time to participate. But actually, I say firstly on that, when I first started at Movember, I wasn't sure if kind of the men's health, moustache growing, education and awareness campaign, or whatever you want to call it, how effective that was. I thought the real effect we had on men's health, or how we helped men throughout the country, was in the programs that we funded. But I've actually done a bit of a 180 on that, and I think it's probably just the maturity of the campaign. But I would say now, very humbly, that Movember in sort of partnership with others has now, it's not, a surprise. It's almost expected when we engage in men's health during Movember now. It's become a little bit of part of the fabric. It's the men's health month, I think. So I've now, anecdotally and through some research as well, but those conversations that are being had and those behaviours that are being had in November are changing, and they are changing the men's health conversation. So I sort of have done a bit of a 180, as I said, and I see it as probably the best program that we're kind of invested in. But you're right, we are very fortunate to have people fundraise for us, thousands year on year. And, we fund men's health programs. We're preventative, we're upstream, so we don't fund services. Services are so important, and the people involved in those do amazing work. It's really, really difficult work. And it's really important stuff, but it's our job to take pressure off the services. That's the way we always describe it. So if we can help the services by giving men good information for themselves and their mates so that they can be preventative self-care, not actually have to utilise those services, then that's kind of our job to do, and how we work in partnership with some of those frontliners. So those are the types of programs we fund. We try and fund things like we also do it, in partnership with people who have sort of shared values and talk to men as well. So we partner with New Zealand Rugby, we partner with Fire and Emergency New Zealand, we partner with Fed Farmers, FMG, and the reason we do that is because they talk to men on a daily basis. A lot of those organisations have their trust, because it's probably, even you, Luke, in the stuff that you do, you probably understand that it's not always what you say, but who says it. Sometimes you might give someone some financial advice and you've nailed it, but it doesn't resonate for some reason, but because your dad gives it, or someone else gives it, or
All Black,
or totally, or someone who's big in the Māori or Pacifica community, or a female, or whatever it may be, then that same message resonates. So that's actually a skill. It's like a men's health skill. So we work with people who have respect of their audiences, talk to men on a regular basis. You can't build something over there. You got to go to where men are. You got to talk into a language they understand. You've got to build a bit of trust. So we try and work with organisations that help us do that. That's absolutely been the case with the Fire Service, Fire and Emergency New Zealand. It's been the case with New Zealand Rugby. So it's sort of, those are the techniques that we use. It allows us to reach heaps of men as well. So we fund a number of programs. Very fortunate to have funded over 50 programs around the country trying to help as many men as possible.
Awesome.
Too many of us signed up to a KiwiSaver plan without much thought. And signing up is great, but if you've never got advice before, you could be missing out. Your KiwiSaver account could become one of your biggest assets over your lifetime. That's why getting expert advice early and ensuring you're in the right fund is so worthwhile. Generate have a team of KiwiSaver advisors available to help. Head to generatekiwisaver.co.nz/change to book a no obligation meeting. They can even come to you. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
Do you, as this has gotten bigger, do you get any blowback that, oh, okay, but it's just for men? Surely.
Yeah, no, you totally do. You get blowback on all sorts of things, and you get blowback on partnership with Spates. You get blowback on that it's for men. You get blowback on you need to help services because those are the people in real need. This upstream rubbish, preventative is, that's not going to move the dial. Like, you get blowback on all those things. But as long as you're really confident in your values and your strategy, which I absolutely are, and we are at Movember, like, we know that giving a man information to help himself with others is the way to go. Like, it's, again, to link back to what you do, knowledge is power. Like, it just is, and to... Men are responsive. Like, the biggest issue in men's health is that we present late for everything. Like, everything. We are not upstream. We are not preventative. We enter the health service late. We look after ourselves late. We need a genuine punch on the nose before we'll do anything. And sometimes we don't need to be knocked out before we do anything. So, I very much believe in our strategy of being upstream, trying to get men to change their behaviour. And the reality is, particularly now that we've been going for ages. And again, you probably see this in your own work. There is a large part of the male population, I'd say as much as 80%, that know what's good for them. Like, they know when they're operating at their best. They know what really good looks like for them. They know when they're feeling really good. Getting them to do that as much as possible is the challenge. Like, getting men to change their behaviour and normalise things and make it habitual is the challenge. Like, we know being fit's good for us. We know sleeping's good for us. We know eating well's good for us. We probably know that, when we're financially secure, we feel a lot better about ourselves. We know all these things, but we're trying to get all those stars to align or genuinely change your behaviour to gear us towards that is the challenge, but also acknowledging along the way, even if you're trying your hardest, you're not always going to be there. So how do we navigate that? So that's certainly, in the space that we try and operate, and we're really strong in our convictions, and anyone who challenges me on any of those aspects, I just see it as an opportunity to talk about the work we do. I see it as an opportunity to sort of say why we do what we do, and if they still don't agree, well, so be it. I'll support what they're doing, and hopefully at least we had the conversation.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask, because there'll be people listening to this, and they'll be doing good stuff out there as well. But
totally.
I don't know if it's a New Zealand thing or maybe every country, but you can't, once you do enough good, you can't help but then have people tell you that what you're doing isn't good, because I think you attract enough attention. So, yeah, any advice for people to work through that? You talked about, sticking to your values and whatnot, but it must get frustrating when you're doing so much good and then have people that would just look at you in the face and say, well, what you're doing doesn't matter.
Maybe years ago I might have worried about it a wee bit, but, unfortunately the way the world is, we sort of get ourselves up to take cheap shots at people from far away, and rather than being angry about it, you just rock on. And as I said, if you're really confident, you're sort of comfortable in your own skin and you believe in what you're doing, then you can push through that stuff. And normally I find that, when you have a conversation with people or they learn a little bit more about you, they don't necessarily end up agreeing with you, but there's a respect and rapport there. And it's a little bit like same but different. A lot of people say to me, oh, I've heard about this charity and this cost ratio is this, or I heard about this and he does this. And I'm like, if you are passionate about something, if you want to support something, and you genuinely want to go over and above to support that organisation, just take a little bit of time to check them out, talk to someone, research them, and just make sure that they align with your values. And if they do, there's normally a reason, that people operate at different cost ratios, or the reason that an organisation may have, more staff than another organisation. Those are all normally products of a genuine reason. There's very few. I've come across very few organisations out there who are bad people. They're all trying to do good stuff, and the main struggle for charities is that they're so busy doing their core business that they never have the opportunity to look around. They don't have the opportunity to promote their work. They don't have the opportunity to evaluate their work so they can show how good it really is. That's the struggle for them. Like, that's why at Movember, everything we fund, we evaluate so we can show whether it's good, bad or ugly. And if it's really, really good, then there might be an opportunity to scale or promote it to other people. These days, we take real pride in holding up other people's work in lights. You know, like we just did a men's health report this year, and a part of that report was showcasing some of the fantastic men's health programs that go on around the country. A lot of them that we don't fund, or they're not our programs. But the reality is, Movember's not truly going to move the dial on men's health. But if we could be someone who leads and advocates in the industry and helps give a voice to maybe a bunch of smaller organisations that actually would really benefit from a bit of representation, so be it. Not everyone's up for that. Like, as that all sounds great, doesn't it? You know, like, oh, wow, Rob. But not everyone's necessarily up for that. But I think, normally over time, you get on the same page as people. But I'd say, as I said, the majority of charities are doing really, really good stuff. And if you're interested in supporting them, just take a little bit of time to see what they're all about.
What would you say the state of men's health is in New Zealand in 2025?
Yeah, I'd say it's a bit of a two-speed economy, mate. Like, as I sort of mentioned at the start, like, there's so many things that we're doing really, really well. If we talk about men's health initiatives or having different things within organisations and communities that are focused on helping men, well, there's just so many more than there used to be. There just absolutely is, and it's awesome. And to sort of see some of the conversations that are being had in workplaces and communities between bosses and colleagues, and to hear anecdotally some of the experiences people are having every Movember, where they've created this platform for them to share some of the challenges outside of their workplace, is amazing. And young people get a bad name in this country, but they just don't deserve it. Like, a young man these days is, dare I say, miles ahead of you and me, mate. Like I was a stereotypical little white boy who thought sort of bottling everything up was the way to go, that, strength was being staunch and solve all the problems myself, and never acknowledged that I was struggling in any way, shape or form. Not like struggling, but even just with your work, with your studies, with your sport, like, that was just our way, farming family, be stoic, like that. That's what it is. Well, and that's what my mates were. But these days, young men are awesome. Like they are so up for helping their mates out. They have all sorts of amazing conversations that we never had. So that stuff is awesome. Like, that's completely going in the right direction. Unfortunately, some of the challenges in the world are still ahead of us, and young men still have terrible suicide rates in this country. It's the biggest killer of young men is suicide, but the challenges are different. There was no social media when I was young. We have a lot of wallflowers, a lot of guys who are sort of almost becoming asocial, like guys who don't know how to interact. They don't know how to take cues. They don't know how to talk to people, because that's how the world's get up for them these days. If they want, they can do all the things they need to do in life and not leave their room. Like that's the world we live in. So we've actually got to really fight that. Like, New Zealand used to be, I think, one of the top 2 or 3 physically active countries in the world. Like, we used to be sort of, one of the most revered countries in the OECD for how active we were. And that all makes sense, because we're this outdoor, 100 Ks to the beach, to the mountains. We're a country of immigrants that came and sort of built the country with our hands from the ground up. Like, it all makes a lot of sense. But these days we're in the bottom third, and that used to be one of our superpowers, that because, being exercise is medicine, like everyone should have it. Like, you can be suffering from anything. It's not just the things that we focus on. It can be cardiovascular, diabetes, it can be heart disease. There's so many things. And you don't need to be a doctor with 10 years experience. You don't need to be a specialist or a professor. They'll all tell you to put physical activity into your life in some way, shape or form. And it's not at our fingertips like it used to be. Like, our lifestyle has changed, like, significantly. Some people don't acknowledge it, but it's changed so much than what we think. That's the sort of thing facing young men. Like, parents, unfortunately, are not as attuned or aware to the things that young men are exposed to. Like, most men go online for really good intentions. So a young fellow will go on and he wants to know how to get a girlfriend, he wants to know how to get a good job, he wants to know how to get really fit and strong, he wants to know how to make heaps of money one day. That's all the same shit you and me wanted to do when we were young. Like, they haven't changed, these guys. but they're normally sort of 2 clicks away from something more nefarious that takes them off to some shit dating app or like some shit Bitcoin thing that's going to take all them, like they're a couple of steps away because of the way the algorithm is built. They've gone on with great intentions, so we can't fault them for that. But they're getting led down a path that, is not actually as helpful as it should be. And so that's why connection remains, really, really important. Connection with your mates, connection with your parents, connection with really good role models and mentors to kind of help you guide through all that, because otherwise I genuinely worry that in 10 years' time, kids that need to go to uni to know how to fucking talk to people. Like, that all sounds a bit like, don't be silly, but like that's kind of actually a little bit where we're getting to, and
makes a lot of sense.
Mate, it's in the UK and the US, because I suppose bigger populations and stuff, they're always with some of that stuff a little bit ahead of us, but the trends are the same. Like, it's just because it's further away doesn't mean it's not happening here. It's 100% happening here.
Yeah. It'd be probably concerning for parents, right? Like, they probably think they're really in tune with their kids, but don't really know what's going on underneath those headphones and
totally.
on the device.
Oh, I heard a great saying the other day. Scott Galloway's a great sort of thinker in the men's health space as well as finance. But he was saying that we helicopter our kids. So like when they're kind of whether it's taking them to school, supporting them in their sports, or just anything at all, we helicopter the shit out of them. Gone are the days where a kid jumps on his bike on a Saturday morning, is gone for 14 hours and comes home for dinner, which is kind of what I did. You went down with $5 in your pocket, no phone, no way of getting a hold of you, and mum and dad just assumed you'd be home for dinner, and that's what we all did. And along the way, you did some stupid things, and you fell out of a tree, and you made some mistakes, and you're hungry because you spent your $5 in the first hour on crap, but you kind of did a bit of problem solving and a bit of resilience, and you learnt it all yourself, and you worked through it with your mates. These days, we helicopter that part of life. We drop them at school. We do all that sort of thing. But the comparison is like when they get into the online world, that's where we're hands off. That's actually probably where they need the most support and guidance and supervision when they're young online. But that's when we're hands off, or a lot of people are hands off because for all sorts of reasons. They're busy. They don't understand the space. They never had it when they were growing up. Whereas actually where you learn a lot of stuff when you're just out and about, playing, learning, doing stuff with your mates. We're right there saying, oh, mate, don't get out of that tree. We're right there saying, oh, no, put a cricket helmet on. Oh, no, we're not playing rugby anymore. That kid's too big. No, we're not doing that.
Yeah, I see.
And we're sort of, I don't know if we're kind of getting some of the bumps and bruises along the way, which kind of help you navigate,
Well, I suppose there's a bit of a movement at the moment towards getting kids off of social media and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Most Kiwi don't have a financial plan. They have a she'll be right, mate attitude. Amy from Leverage is helping KTC listeners change that. If you're needing direction, clarity, or wondering what your next financial move should be, then book a call with Amy or download her free DIY financial plan to freedom. To do that, visit financialplan.co.nz. What about ADHD? Like, it's, to me, outside looking in, it seems to be one of these topics that's just exploded over the last few years. Are you guys seeing that in your research, or people getting in touch?
Yeah, we haven't done heaps in that space, but the whole neurodiversity and the diagnosis of neurodiversity is going through the roof. I think I don't know heaps about the space, but you certainly you can have a good conversation around. Again, like if you know these things, you can put things in place. So if your kid's ADHD or has dyslexia or all these bunch of challenges that kids face, I suppose the sooner you know that, the sooner you can put some things in place for them. And I've got mates who are like, they're positive they're ADHD, but they were just undiagnosed and they just got labelled as that naughty, annoying kid when they were a little hyperactive kid that just needed to go run out in the playground and then they could come back in. And the reality is they probably were ADHD. Now, whether they're better off or worse off for being undiagnosed, like people can have a debate about that because there's so many different levels. But I think we're in the information world, and it's what we do with the information. We can't turn it off. We can't turn social media off. We can't turn computers off. We can't turn off some of these things we're seeing. But what do we do with them? Like that's definitely the challenge.
And going back to physical health, I think I read that we're the third most obese country in the OECD now, which
disaster.
It's
an absolute disaster. Yeah, like it is 100%. And like I think sometimes people go looking to Movember and others, or just doing research or having conversations, or you're always whatever's happening in health with the government is always so topical because we're out there looking for silver bullets or wanting to like blame someone else for an outcome. the reality is you've got to own 100% of your 50%. You know, like you are responsible for yourself and your health. The other 50% is probably the health service or the system that we live in or our government or whatever it may be. But we've got to take a lot more ownership of our own health. And the reality is we're not as fit as we used to be. We're not eating as well as we used to. We're not sleeping as well as we used to. There's a bunch of reasons for that. And that's that other 50%. Like I'm hugely supportive of a social media ban. Now, whether you can implement it or not, I don't know. But it's a line in the sand. Like it's saying that we don't think this is right. That's still a good thing. You know, whether you pull it off or not, who cares really? You know, like you can walk into a school now and there'll be kids on their phones, but there's a cell phone ban and predominantly they're off their phones. That's a good thing. Like whether, if someone's trying to be niggly, they can walk around and say, oh, it doesn't work anyway. The kids just get them out all the time. Well, they're out a lot less than they used to be, like 100%. You know, and you could say the same thing with social media. Like, would a ban work? I don't know. Can we do ID? Blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. But it's like, we should try. We shouldn't just not try. Yeah. We shouldn't just say, oh, nah.
We'll see what happens.
It's too hard basket, you know, like particularly if we know it's that detrimental, and it absolutely is. And like, but actually some of the answers is the real easy stuff. Like if you're a parent, role model it, like phones down at 8 o'clock, like put them in a jar and that's it, you know, like have dinner at the dinner table once or twice a week, you know, like instead of eating at the bench, looking at your phone, you know, like actually phones down, have the dinner table. How's school today? How's things going on today? Like role model that stuff. Like don't let kids have phones in their room at night, you know, because most of them are not doing anything too bad, but they're not sleeping.
Yeah.
You know, they're up at 11:30 at night still looking at their phone because they're watching the reel of Freddie Freeman hitting another home run yesterday or looking at the All Blacks team. So all good stuff, but they can find that shit out in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, like get off your phone. Same thing with parents. Like if you think that stuff's important, you know, if you first thing you do in the morning is look at your phone and the last thing you do at night is look at your phone, you're getting it wrong. Like you're just getting it wrong, you know, like, and sometimes I do it. Yeah. So it's not like I'm amazing and I get it wrong all the time as well, but I try to get it right. And if you have more right days than wrong days, then you'll head in the right direction. So like I think people look for others to solve problems or whatever it may be, but there's so many things that we can do ourselves, and a lot of them are like piss easy, you know.
Yeah, I think what you said before about trying to make it habitual, right? And that's everything is so good in the world now at getting us to habit compound in the wrong direction.
Totally.
So like you say, phone first thing in the morning, at night, okay, hold it. Yeah. It's got good battery now, I can hold it and watch till 11:30. The light keeps me awake.
Yeah.
But normally if I wasn't, I'd be falling asleep. How's it keeping me awake? And it's just crazy.
Oh, mate, totally. If you think about it a little bit, like there's a bunch of things that make a huge amount of sense. So like when you and me were young, and I'm sorry to keep labeling you into my age group, I think you're a bit younger, but and the reality is like on Sunday, the only thing that was open on a Sunday was like the gas station and the dairy. Like that was it, you know? So like, and most things were shut and most people didn't work. Not everyone, but most people didn't work. Like Sunday was a day of rest, you know? And you would go outside, you'd play golf, you'd mow the lawns, you'd do the gardening, you'd, you know, go fishing, like do whatever it is that you do, or you just relax and like read a book. You'd actually have a day of rest and then you go back on Monday and have another go. These days we just push straight through. We just wind straight through. We look at our computer, we look at our phone. A lot of us work, malls, everything's open, everything's online, everything's going. And we keep going around the cycle and we wonder why every Monday we're cooked. It's because we actually never truly stop and rest, because that used to be there for us. Like, you know, if I came out and said as a politician, oh, we should go back to everything being shut on a Sunday, everyone go, oh, you know, we can't do that for the economy. There's all this much money generated. What about the jobs? What about this? What about that? And that's all a really fair argument. And I'm sure some people could pull up some pretty, you know, engaging numbers around why we shouldn't do that. But should it be better for us? Like as a group of humans, it would be far better for us, you know. And like if you think of early computer games that you used to play, generally rugby, Pac-Man, all these things you used to engage in, they used to have an end point, you know, and you could play again, like, and many people did, but the game would finish. These days, you can go through 90,000. The game is built to keep you doing it. Yeah, you know, they want kids, or just people. When I say kids, because actually men are some of the worst gamers with their behaviours. They just want you to keep playing forever. You know, they don't want the game never to end. They keep winning levels. They keep finding ways to suck you in. You can buy things. You can get to the next level, and then like the game never ends. Whereas like things used to end, you know, like and then you would stop, and you go away and do something else and go again. These days, everything, to the point you made before, everything is designed to keep you engaged. It is the whole thing is working against you. So again, well, we're not stopping PlayStation. We're not stopping Nintendo. We can't. There's no way Movember's going to run a campaign to like get rid of all those things. But we can tell people this stuff, and then again, 100% of your 50%. Like, what do you do with that? And it's like, yep, boys love gaming on Sunday afternoons or whatever. Whatever they can game, but let's put some parameters around it. Like they can, if they do some exercise. Do their homework, like whatever. Parents have all sorts of strategies, but like that stuff just sounds like pretty straightforward. It's actually really important.
Yeah, some good strong boundaries and just checking in on what's negatively impacting your health. I think one thing that I've been blown away is just the popularity of the introduction of vape and just how quickly we took to it and bang, it just exploded. But there's no real critical thing to stop and go, why do I even do this? How did I even come to do this? Or
not a good thing.
Yeah, but again, it's a good example of we can slot something in, some new form of technology or vice, and we just go, right, I'm going to create a habit out of this, and then it's so hard to unwind.
Totally, and people say, we do a lot of stuff in schools, and we do a lot of stuff in all sorts of different places, and like people will say, you can have these wonderful debates over a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever it may be at the barbecue around, oh, we're all soft today. That's something that you often always hear. You hear things like woke and you hear all this sort of stuff. And people say, oh, we went through world wars and we did this and we did that. And it's all good points. But like the reality is, I would say things are not better or worse, they're just different. But actually, what is worse is that things change more quickly, like far more quickly. So to your example with the vape, when we talk about AI, I mean, it's a 2 or 3 year phenomenon, really. And now it is basically integrated into our life. It has already taken millions of jobs like across the world, like absolutely has. Like there's study coming out around how much some of the big tech companies are adopting AI and people losing their jobs. Like those things happen so much more faster than they used to, and we consume them all at the same time through information. So, for an example, terrible thing, like absolutely terrible thing, like when Charlie Kirk got shot, like my sons, who are 13, basically saw that shooting in real time because someone in the school environment got it up on their phone, and basically hundreds of kids or thousands of kids in this country saw that effectively in real time. Quite graphic as well. Like it was pretty graphic, like some of the imagery. That's not a good thing, Like that's as I said, we can't take it away. We can't make that stuff not happen. But that's not how we used to live. Like when these people who say when things used to be harder, and I don't want to take away from the challenges of the past, they were not exposed to that sort of stuff like that. Like there is no way a 10, 11 and 12 and 13-year-old would be exposed to that type of thing at that age. Like that is different, substantially different. And it's the challenges that we face a little bit at the moment, and the goalposts move so quickly.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, I searched on Instagram and with enough awareness to go, do you actually want to watch this? Because you know that this video is probably going to be it. And I'm like, and then instantly after I'm like, fuck, why did I watch that?
Totally.
But I probably would have seen it in some way, shape. But I at least had the awareness to go, are you sure? Because I'd seen something really graphic as a young fella growing up. And it just stuck with me. But it was one of those like, is that even real? But how is that? And so I know how that can make you feel. But
you don't want that normalised.
No.
You don't want that normalised. You don't like. It's great that you had that check and that you had because of your life experiences. Whereas I don't know how these young people took that. Whether they're just like, oh yeah, got shot. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I see all the time in the video games. That's what we do all the time. Or like, I don't know. I don't. That's just. I don't want to dive into that because I don't really know. But
I
like,
think the point
what I do know is they shouldn't be seeing that shit in real time.
No. or just that there's so much access to it now. So that many years ago it would be someone sent you something that you had to then download and you're like, should I be downloading this? Yeah. But now it's just, okay, jump into that browser, I'll probably be able to find it. Or it might be on the news and the news might say, oh, we're not going to show it because it's graphic or whatever.
Totally.
But I think all it does is it drives you to then want to dig it out too. And everything can be accessed.
There's everything's at their fingertips. It doesn't really, in fact, young people are better because they know how to do VPNs, they know how to operate that world a lot better than some of us old codgers who like sort of thumbs it around, but even it gets to us as well.
The amount of people that leave comments on my stuff around ad blockers and stuff, I'm like, okay, like I don't even know half the time what they're talking about. But they're like, how do you not know, you dickhead? What other sort of stats do you think would surprise Kiwi people? Whether there's anything that you see that you think people probably just genuinely like don't know about this, or we need to be aware of?
Yeah, I think essentially Kiwis still think of themselves as really active, really connected, really social people. That's what, if you sort of try to describe a New Zealander, no matter what they look like, you'd probably say that's who they are. They're sort of connected to the outdoors. They're pretty active. We have, sailors and sports people, and we have this number 8 warrior attitude, and we can turn our hand to anything. And that's sort of, I think, how a lot of Kiwis would reflect themselves. Unfortunately, that's not as much the case as it used to be. I think Kiwis, when they really dug into it and looked how we behave these days, they'd be really disappointed. And I think it would shock them a little bit to realise like how inactive we are. We're really inactive. I think they'd be really, really disappointed to know in its totality how bad some of our health outcomes are. I think they'd be really disappointed about that. I think
even obesity, I guess, as we touched on before.
Totally, and it's easy to like put that to certain parts of the population or whatever, but actually access to healthcare should be for everyone. Everyone should have the ability to be physically active. Everyone should be able to be seen in some way, shape or form. Everyone should be able to access some sort of sport or physical activity really, really easily. It should be, we used to be we are getting different health outcomes, and it is unfortunately the inequity between, it's not colour, it's just really access and wealth. Like if you're poorer and you're in a rural area, you'll probably have a worse health outcome, That's not what we want. That's not what Kiwis are all about. So that's why I think like while there's huge amount of work to do in that space, probably for governments and district health boards and all that sort of thing, the existing medical fraternity, and they have huge conversations around this, and it's in a bad place at the moment. And I don't think the health sector would mind me saying that because it is. But what can we do about it at the moment? Well, we can look after ourselves and our mates like really well. We can be active. We can be social. We can get people round. It's okay to have a beer. Like actually, it's probably not a bad thing sometimes because you chew the fat a wee bit. Have a zero. Have a half. Like whatever it may be. But actually, just make the effort to catch up with people. Like we're as I said, we're becoming asocial. And it's not just a New Zealand thing. I think 40% of the nightclubs have shut in the UK, since COVID, because people don't have the money to go out and do it anymore. They're getting their vices or their entertainment and other platforms that we've discussed, and they're just not becoming as social. They're getting their information 100% online. We're using, ChatGPT and AI, which is a one-way conversation. There's no one coming back at us. There's no one challenging us. There's no discussion. There's no cues. There's no, that is... And perhaps New Zealand's at a stage where we can see what's happening in the rest of the world and change it before it gets here. But, that stuff is happening here a little bit as well.
What advice or what's a tactic for someone maybe listening that, bloke listening and they know they've either got a physical or a mental type situation or issue that's bubbling away and they need to do something about it but are scared to take that next step? What's the best way for them to start making some progress?
Yeah, look, the thing, I wish there was like a silver bullet, so to speak, but like starting's the first thing. So like if you're in a position where you acknowledge you're not quite running at 100, well, that's actually a good thing because hopefully you're in a position to do something about it. Be brave, and if you're struggling to do it yourself or put something in place, then, utilise the people around you. Invariably, 99 people out of 100 want to help. They just don't know sometimes that someone needs help. Almost all research you ever do, every conversation that you ever have, people want to help. Kiwis are good people. They are really, really good people. They are resourceful. They will help if they can. So engage with those people. But I sort of think, I say a lot when we do stuff for work, like time is the most valuable commodity. Like it really is. Like, yes, it's important to have a good job and try and earn some money. Is it important to be goal driven but sometimes what we don't really value is our time. And people say you're time poor. I challenge that. Like, if you grab your phone and look at, someone's behaviours, there'll be 2 hours on social media. Boom. We'll just cut that in half. There's another hour. And with that hour, you can connect with a friend, you can exercise, you can do any of the things that we've discussed this whole time. You can balance your books, you can look at your finances, you can learn something you want to learn something about. You can do all that stuff. We've got so much more time than what we actually think. We've made ourselves time poor with our behaviours. Like, you don't have to answer all your work emails between 8 and 11. Like, and if you do have to, then you got to have a look at that. So I think I reckon there's a whole lot of low-hanging fruit for people, like in terms of how we use our time, who we spend our time with. Like there's, I always say to people, like, when are you at your best? Like, when do you feel your best? When you're operating at your best? When you're like that, who are the people around you who make you feel good? And when you're operating really well, who are you interacting with? Try and, repeat that as much as possible. Like, so often you go into a workplace and, people have literally gone a week or a month or even longer. They haven't really done anything they enjoy, and they haven't really spent any time with people they enjoy their company. Well, you're just getting that wrong, like you need to surround yourself with people who top up your bucket, who don't drain you. At times you've got to help people. That's because you love them or you're friends or your mates, and that's what you do. But most of the time, surround yourself with people who give you good energy and good vibes and big you up, and you will compliment each other and be that person as well. Like, be, as you said, you and me could sit here and dig up all sorts of people that, drive us insane because they think Movember's rubbish or they've said, bad comments on your podcast or something like that. But like, don't worry about them. Worry about the people who, see value in the conversations that you have or like the advice that you give them, or people who have had a really good experience with Movember and they want to share that with others, and then they can role model that and then they can help others. Like, put your energy into the good stuff,
Last one before we wrap up. I often hear from lads that they finally break the back of wanting to acknowledge that they're not doing the best, but they have the conversation with their partner, and sometimes, I was going to say often, but this is anecdotally quite common. What I hear is then they're not heard by their partner, and so then they go back into, oh, well, bugger it. I'll go back to the stoic version or the no one cares, etc. Do you come across that? Is that's more than just me hearing a few murmurs?
No, totally. And I think probably, I suppose there's a couple of things on that. One, like, if you reach out to your partner and they almost, don't acknowledge what you've said or whatever it may be, then, that's not a great thing, in terms of your relationship. But sometimes that sort of stuff takes time and that. But you're right, like, men really struggle to ask for help. I'd say probably there's a couple of things around that. Is like, there's a model, like a mental health conversation model called ALEC, which is ask, listen, encourage, action, check in. And like, so actually we're developing a better culture around asking for help and even acknowledging change in others. We're doing a bit better in that space. We haven't nailed it, but we're doing it better because of a lot of the things that we've discussed today. What men are really bad at, and perhaps maybe our female counterparts are as well, I'm not too sure, but what men are particularly bad at is listening. So what we will do invariably is try and jump in and problem solve. You'll say to me, oh, Rob, I'm really struggling, like certain aspects are going wrong. And I'll be like, don't you worry about it, mate, that's not a problem. You just do this, that, and the other. You've actually got to really acknowledge the issue. Like, for that person, that is a big issue, So you want to make sure that you acknowledge that. And by giving someone space, it's really hard to do. Guys are so bad at it because they want to do the problem solving stuff first. Just listening for 2, 3, 5, 20 minutes, whatever it may be, is a tool, like is a men's health tool and a skill. And invariably, even if you've said nothing, that person will be better off for giving them that space. Because again, it's all fast living and can't catch up and we can't do this, and or we try and jump in and make out that it's not that bad and try and problem solve. But like, holding space for someone is a real skill, and one that we can a little bit better at. And then once you've given them the opportunity to speak, then you can encourage some action, do some problem solving. You can share some more stories around what worked for you, and then the check-in part, like, a week later, 2 weeks later, like, how are we going, that sort of stuff. It's quite often we go into workplaces and they just want a model to work towards because, Luke, he is never late to work, for as long as I've known him, he's always been here well, in the last month has been late 4 times. That's weird. So, you might step in and they might be brave enough to say something, but you've got to give them space to let you know what's going on. And even if they say nothing's wrong, the fact that you've asked is actually will be acknowledged. Like in the back of their mind, they'll be like, oh, that's actually pretty cool that they have noticed that, and that they've reached out to me. So, as I said, like it's, sometimes when guys are brave, it's not rewarded, and that's I think that's probably just more of a trying to make sure that whether we're talking or receiving, or whatever it may be, that we've all got a bit of empathy and we all give people a bit of space and a bit of time, and if we do that sort of collectively, then we'll be going in the right direction.
If people want to support Movember, what's the best way to do that, given that we're pretty late into November?
Totally, mate. There should be heaps of good moustaches floating around at the moment, which is cool, or people just doing awesome activities on our behalf. So pretty much just go to Movember.com. There's a donate button on there. If there's a person in particular, just search their name. They've normally got a fundraising page, and it'll sort of map out all the stuff they've been doing. And the reason Movember's been successful over the years is it's just, lots and lots of small contributions, like just heaps of acknowledgement, telling the man in your life he actually looks all right with a moustache, telling him he looks handsome, giving him a little donation, and hopefully, we always talk about moustaches being 30 days of the year, but men's health every day, So if there's a behaviour or a conversation or something that's been received well, as we said before, try and make that habitual, try and normalise it so that, you actually get 3 or 4 months down the track and you're like, this is how I roll now, like I'm a bit more active than I used to be. I rang all the groomsmen at my wedding and checked in with them, and now we're actually talking a bit more than we used to, instead of, twice a year or however it is how men behave. You might delete, the social media apps off your phone for Movember, and then you realise, I don't need to put them back on as much as I thought. Like just that little behaviour change, just trying to turn it from 30 days into something that is genuinely going to help you day in, day out.
Because everybody's got something going on. That's what I've come to learn.
100%. Like that's the one thing you learn at Movember. Like we might deal with all sorts, and sometimes there's certain people in the country you're like, God, no, you're allowed to struggle. Like you've been dealt a shit hand, and you deserve a bit of help. But there's people who you perceive as successful, whether they're great jobs, leading companies. We deal a lot with athletes, heaps of well-known sports people and all that sort of stuff. Everyone struggles from time to time. Like it is just, that is the only truth, is that we all struggle from time to time, but it's what we do. And invariably, as I said, if we're doing our job right, hopefully we can ensure that people don't get to that pointy end, that critical stage, because we're provided really good information.
Well, you're doing outstanding work, mate, and you've obviously, found something you're really passionate about as well, to stick at it for 15 years. So well done. I think the country owes you a salute for the work that you have done, and being able to activate people to work, with you and alongside you to continue to build this movement, I guess, that's been put together. So if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, just Robert@Movember.com's my address, and reach out to me in any way, shape or form. And it's awesome to be a part of Movember, but in any given year we get sort of 15,000 people sign up to do Movember. They help facilitate like 50,000 individual donations. So we're very lucky to have a very cool group of people, and it's kind of that layers of advocacy is what really creates change. It's not one organisation or person saying stuff. It's that layers and layers and layers of saying the right thing time and time again when it finally resonates and hits home.
Well, make sure you look after yourself in November as well, mate.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks, mate. Appreciate being on.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. As always, make sure you're taking action, and I would love to see you on the 5th of December at Keep the Change Unplugged. We're going to be kicking off around 6:30, but start rolling in from 6 p.m. It's only $26. It's in Takapuna. If you Google Keep the Change Unplugged, you'll find the Ticketmaster link. I'd love to see you there. Let's get inspired by some of these amazing guests that we've had throughout the year and get ourselves ready for an awesome 2026. Bring it on.